Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into a wild new Marvel theory. Why was X-23, aka Laura Kinney, banished to the void during the events of Deadpool and Wolverine? You might be wondering how she got there and what she did after Logan that led her to be pulled off her timeline and exiled. Well, buckle up, because we've got some answers for you. Recently it was confirmed that the variant of Laura Kinney we see in this Marvel saga is the same one from Logan. But the big question isn't just who she is, it's why this particular version of X-23 was thrown into the void. What could have happened that led her to this fate? And most importantly, how did she escape? Let's break it all down. Back in the early days of the TVA, the reasons someone could be removed from a timeline were strict, sometimes overly so. Even innocent people who hadn't intentionally done anything wrong could get pruned under the reign of He Who Remains. In fact, as Miss Minutes explained in Loki, something as minor as being late to work could trigger a splinter in the timeline and result in pruning. But things have changed since Loki took the reins of the multiverse. So, under these new TVA guidelines, what could lead to someone being removed from their timeline and thrown into the void? Nowadays, the most serious crime is causing damage to an entire reality. Whether it's by jumping between timelines, trying to conquer them, or even causing incursions, the TVA is keeping a close eye on variants of Kang to make sure they don't become tyrants. Will we see versions of Kang in the future movies, like Doomsday or even Secret War? We don't know, but we hope so. Even though Jonathan Majors have had his, let's say, problems, we hope we can see him again. We can remember when Doctor Strange jumped into Earth 838, or when Wanda dreamwalked between realities, and nothing happened. The TVA didn't go in, they didn't intervene, they didn't prune anyone. So if anything happened with X-23 after the events of Logan, it had to be something even more serious. On Deadpool and Wolverine, we saw that TVA has a lot of factions. Not all factions are playing by the same rules. We saw Paradox, who broke away with the main TVA. He was leading a rogue faction of the TVA. What was the mission? To kill dying timelines. Even if the dying of that timeline would be thousands and thousands of years away. And it looked like they're responsible for a lot of the pruning we saw in Deadpool and Wolverine. When Deadpool and Wolverine, we saw that some of these pruning happens because heroes like Blade tried to save their timelines. They didn't go on with Paradox's plan to be their hero.
Bring them out, bring them out.
This brings us to X-23. It seems that Paradox didn't just start recruiting heroes, he's been at it for a while. What if Paradox had already tried to pull X-23 from a dying timeline as part of his twisted mission to, let's say, save the heroes from doomed realities? But unlike others, X-23 refused his offer, just like Gambit, Elektra, Blade, or even Johnny Storm did before her. There's also a timeline issue, like Logan was in 2029, where Wolverine should have still been alive when Deadpool was active, and she should have been much younger, but the MCU isn't bound by linear time. It's possible that Paradox pulled X-23 from a point in the mid-2030s on her timeline because we can see that she'd matured enough to make the difficult choice of leaving her reality behind. So, how did this all go down? After Wolverine's death in the primary Fox timeline, Paradox likely examined the timeline to see if anyone was worth saving before deciding to mercy kill it. We can say he could have saved some of the other X-Men, but as we know, they all died because of Xavier. His first target was Laura Kinney, which was basically Wolverine's clone or child, but instead of pulling her right after his death, he waited until she was more mature, she was older. He offered her the chance to escape her timeline before it collapsed. But like the other heroes before her, X-23 rebelled. She refused to abandon her world, which led to her being pruned. Now, here's the things where things get murky. We don't know exactly when the other heroes were pruned in relation to X-23. Did she arrive before or after them?
Adiós, pendejo.
At the same time, or maybe Paradox staggered their arrivals? It's likely that Paradox has been playing this game for a long time, which means X-23's rebellion was just one of many, and it's possible that she and Deadpool arrived in the void months apart because of Paradox's timeline manipulation. Once in the void, X-23 had to adapt quickly. She learned about the inner workings of Cassandra Nova's operation. If you don't know who she is, she's the twin sister of Charles Xavier. She navigated the complex politics of the void and eventually joined the resistance movement. It's clear she's been there for quite some time, long enough to have several adventures and stories under her belt. This suggests that Paradox might have been delayed in some way, possibly because he was preparing for his next move or hiding his operation from the main TVA. Either way, it's likely that X-23's interaction with Paradox happened just before she was pruned, but Paradox manipulated the timeline so she and Deadpool arrived in the Void months apart. But here's a big question. Why does Paradox keep trying to save these heroes? If his mission is to mercy kill dying timelines, why go through the trouble of pulling heroes out first? It's possible that Paradox sees these heroes as valuable assets for the main MCU, or perhaps he has another, sinister purpose for collecting them.
Was born ready.
What I can say about this is that Paradox knows what will happen in the future. He has seen the future about the Secret Wars, and he knows what the crucial role players will be in that war. What about the other heroes? We know that Paradox tried to save heroes like Blade, Gambit, and Johnny Storm with mixed results. It's possible some accepted his offer and were relocated to other timelines where they now live quietly, hidden from the main MCU. But this also raises questions about how many timelines has Paradox pruned and how many heroes he has, let's say, saved from each one. Finally, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about incursions. We learned in Doctor Strange MOM, or Multiverse of Madness, that the longer someone stays in a foreign timeline, the more unstable that timeline becomes. Eventually, this could lead to an incursion, a collision between two realities. So if Paradox is relocating heroes long-term, how is he doing it without causing incursions? We know that one of the Doctor Stranges from other universes, he used to travel between all these realities. We also have Sinister Strange, who went into different multiverses and he started killing versions of himself. But how is Mr. Paradox doing it without causing incursions? That is the big question. One possibility is that the problem isn't with people jumping timelines, it's with dreamwalking. In Multiverse of Madness, we saw that dreamwalking, by using the book The Darkhold, as we know, it's one of the worst and most powerful books in the MCU, where someone's consciousness remains to another reality, that is what causes the most damage. So, if Paradox is simply moving people to new timelines and closing the door behind them, it might not be enough to cause an incursion. That's basically what I think happened, because we have the other thing where we had Wanda or Scarlet Witch, she dreamwalked into other universes, she was immediately targeted to be pruned, let's say in this case. So, my question for you guys is, what do you think? Was X-23 approached by Paradox after Logan's death? And did her refusal to abandon her timeline lead to her being banished to the Void? Did Paradox really try to save her, only to end up pruning her timeline? And what role will X-23 play in the multiverse going forward? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this theory in the comments below. I hope we can see X-23 again. I think she's a great actress, and she really played a good role in Deadpool and Wolverine. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more Marvel lore, and smash the like button if you're excited to see where X-23's story goes next. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a great day.